So, hello everybody. Welcome to the second interview I'm doing on YouTube. This time it's a very special guest, Thomas Meyer. He's author of the book, and let me bring it up here. It was originally a book in German, but it's been translated in several languages. And this is the English version: COVID Vaccines from a Spiritual Perspective: Consequences for the Soul and Spirit for Life After Death. And it's also available, and there's also a Dutch translation because there's a lot of Dutch people watching this and Belgian people. And it's called, I'll say it in Dutch, Corona-injecties vanuit spiritueel gezichtspunt. So I've read the book and I was really, really impressed with it. It's a very courageous book, I have to say, Thomas. And tell me a little bit about yourself. I've read that you are an activist and a meditation teacher. You've really been involved in anthroposophy. You're the author of 11 books. You've been an activist for direct democracy in Germany, I think. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to write this book.
Yes, I have spent 20 years working for the right of referendum in Germany, and highlight was the referendum More Democracy in Bavaria. It was 1995, in which the Bavarian population itself introduced the right of referendum in communities in districts. That was a major breakthrough at the time. And then I was quite active in the area of regional currencies, which resulted in the Chiemgauer. But then since 2005, I have mainly led training courses in anthroposophical meditation. And all my life, I have been interested in extrasensory perception and spiritual research. I have written several books on the perception of elemental beings in nature. And one of the books has also been translated into English with the title, Answering the Call of the Elementals, Practices for Connection with Nature Spirits. And another focus of my work is the afterlife. And for decades, I have studied how the dead get stuck and cannot make a normal post-death development. I estimate that the half of the dead today are earthbound or remain stuck in the Kamaloka phase. And these dead then do not enter the light of the spiritual world. That's a little bit my background. And at the beginning of 2021, when the COVID vaccination started, then we were in a working group and we meditated on a woman who had just died. And this woman had received the vaccination shortly before her death. And this woman was in a quite terrible state. Though her ether body, her energy body, was like a solid block. After death, the etheric body should normally expand and become looser, but it was a solid block. And the woman suffered greatly and was in a state of shock. She didn't understand what's going on. And we discovered in the working group that this was a consequence of the COVID vaccination. But at that time, it was the beginning of 2021, we didn't really understand the details. But this experience with this woman was the initial impulse for the book. And then I asked my network of researchers and therapists, which are using extrasensory perception, and I asked them what perception you had with the COVID vaccinations. And I received then reports from over 50 people. And I used this material to write the book about the COVID vaccination and the spiritual effects. And I choose two quotes from Rudolf Steiner from 1917 as the motto of the book. And Rudolf Steiner foresaw how transhumanistic materialism would take over mankind. Jens, could you please show the quotes?
Yes, so I was about to ask that. So you use a lot of terminology that is used by Rudolf Steiner in anthroposophy. And maybe for the clarity for the viewers, we'll explain a little bit, because you use a lot of those concepts like the angel, the etheric body in the book, and maybe it's good for the people to clarify this, because I know some of this terminology, like in theosophy, like the modern New Age terminology is I think based a lot on theosophy, where they talk about the astral body and the mental body, but in anthroposophy it's a little bit different. So let's go into this. I'll bring up this slide here. So I guess it's this one.
Yeah, but first, I would start with a quote, because it gave us the main idea. And Rudolf Steiner said, and it was 1917, that people will be inoculated against their disposition towards spiritual ideas. And the materialistic physicians will be entrusted with the task of expelling the souls from mankind. So it was, it was quite clearly, and and I now understand what he meant. But now we can go for, and that is the main idea of the book. But now we can go further to the super sensible members of a human being. Perhaps this is from the side, and one slide further, it's from the front. And though you, this graphic, can you give an idea what we are as a human being? And this is a typical case. It could be quite different from individual to individual, and also from moment to moment. Though, and you see, we are quite complex beings, and only the material body, who is in the middle, is what we normally say. It's okay, that's a human being, but we are quite more. And first, we have a physical body, but that's a spiritual body. It's also called phantom body or form body. It's like the blueprint of our material body. But it's not, you cannot see it. It's in the spiritual world. And then we had an etheric body that's give us our life energy, or body of life, formatic forces. And this ether body, etheric body, consists with ether power. You also can say prana or chi in China, or ki in Japan. So that this is a life etheric body. And then we had our astral body, and we always, if we feel something, experience something, that is always happening in our astral body. And you can distinguish the astral body and into sentient soul, intellectual soul. That could be intellectual soul is something, it's the same like mental body. Mm-hmm. In other, and consciousness soul, and it's quite different. And if you look with other traditions, the wording is coming together. Also, if it's like different in the end, if we ask what do you meant with it, the wording is coming together. So, and then we also have the spirit, and the spirit in anthroposophy, we distinguish between spirit self, life spirit, and spirit human, but that are cosmic bodies. It's our life in the stars. So it's not an earth. It's really our higher. It's also our higher self. So that it gives us could give you a little bit an idea about our complex super sensible members. And we also have a spiritual team that's quite important. The first of is our angel, and this is the first encounter, as if we go into the spiritual world, at first we encounter our angel, and he leads us through our incarnations. And if you have the feeling, so I feel really connected with myself, it's then you are also connected with your angel. Everyone knows this feeling. Then we had our what's quite important is our body elemental being, because the body elemental being is organizing our bodily life. Is like you also can call him the wisdom of your body. And we had our shadows, doppelganger, is it called in anthroposophy, our double, where all old karma is collected in this double. And here in this graphic, here a double is on the right with a brown color.
Would the doppelganger be considered like the shadow self from other teachings and concepts? Is it like the same thing?
Yes.
Like the shadow self?
The shadow self, the all traumas, but all old unsolved karmas. And we also have a big shadow self or doppelganger with us. Everyone has it, because we are not angels. We all have normally unsolved old karmas, and we have to deal with him, and we have to love him and to work with him.
Yes, that's what they call shadow work, I guess.
Yes. Okay, that only gives you a little bit. I only want to give a little bit an idea. So, and the angel is a yellow behind is a human. So it's a complex. We are complex organization as a human. Though, and now we found after the COVID vaccination that this is changed. Yes. And here is a picture. And what you could see is that are typical impact of the COVID vaccination. And that means you can see that the supersensible members of the human being are pulled apart and displaced. Well, that means that the human being is not completely together anymore. And though an active processing of the vaccination is through an active processing with the vaccination, through healing work, then this it's possible to bring the person back together. This is what you see on the graphic is at the moment after the vaccination, and there are and why is it such a spreading? Because with the vaccination, soratic transhumanistic spirit, so that's the name we found. It's a special kind of spirits are in the aura, and they are responsible for this displacing the members of the human being. Then we found a special vaccine being very close. Be in the back, and this vaccine being is between the angel and the man, and that's also a reason why a lot of people after the vaccination that they can feel the connection to the spiritual world again. They have lost the connection to God, because there is something between them and the angel, and often the angel also is shadowed, because a normal angel has not the power to stand against the soratic being, so they are often stronger than the angel. Then I can go on further with a lot. We had 25 points by looking for the effects of a COVID vaccination. The chakras are blocked, the etheric body is hardened, and also the people becomes more narrow-minded and less empathic.
Yeah, I want to go a little bit more about, you talked about these transhuman spirits, we can go into that later. But first, with these energy bodies being displaced, it seems like it has a huge effect on not only on the physical, as we all know, it has also physical effects, the vaccination, but also on the spiritual level. And that's what really, drew me into the book, because it's not talked about often. People talk about, the effects on the blood and stuff, which needs to be exposed. But there's also this huge effect on the spiritual beings we are. And maybe I want to do a disclaimer before we continue, is I'm not putting this interview out to scare people, because a lot of people have been vaccinated, but we need to talk about this, because it's information that is maybe not it's not fun to know. I mean, the book is sometimes a heavy read, I have to admit, because but I like that, because you don't hold back. It's the truth. We need to follow the truth, and we need to talk about this. And towards the end of the interview, there are ways to heal from this, if that would be happen to you, or there are some people who can mitigate those effects. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So, to continue, do you think this is done on purpose? Like, we're talking about conspiracy here. There is most people watching this will know there is a conspiracy, on the physical level, like with the banks and with the politics, and we have the World Economic Forum and all these things and all these organizations, the Bilderberg Group. But there's also a whole spiritual side to this. And do you think this is part of like a spiritual war on humanity? This is done on purpose?
Yes, it's a spiritual war, and I also that was a big problem by writing the book, not to create fear, but in the same time to speak out the truth we found clearly, but also to show how we can overcome it. So it was really hard for me. It was really hard for me in the writing, and I always really tried not to scare the people. But the truth is sometimes scary. Yes, but in the end, I think the COVID vaccination is a strong spiritual attack on humanity. Because if the people's bodies are changed in such a way that the spiritual connection is made more difficult for them, then the people think and feel more materialistic. So in my view, it's a modern kind of religious war. So it's not targeted directly on the soul and the spirit, but it's the battle takes place over the bodies. And if the bodies are possessed, then it's more difficult to get a spiritual connection afterwards. Yes, it's a spiritual attack on mankind.
Yeah, I see, because you describe it in the book as a powerful impulse to change the human body so that the body is blocked from integrating the human soul consciousness. So that's actually what a lot of people have been saying. And I had this experience through my wife, because my wife is a healer. And even before, with the first vaccinations, she got a client and she saw like this dark cloud hanging over their crown chakra. So, and I've also heard from other healers, not only in your book, who describe the same things. And there's also a difference between vaccines in your book, and I want to go a little bit into that. With the mRNA, there's new technology. You have the vector vaccines. You have like the Chinese and Russian vaccines, who are a little bit different. So, what is the difference between the vaccines, and can you expand a bit on that?
Yes, but the first one thought to what we have spoken. Who is the actor of the spiritual attack? I think you have to take in mind that since Atlantic times, we also have a black magic stream. And this black magic stream goes through the history, and at some points it comes on the surface, and that's our old karma. And I think that is the reason where this black magic attacks were coming, and I think it's not incarnated people, because the incarnated people do not understand and have not the power to create such an attack. I think it's more a spiritual power. So that I only want to
Absolutely, yeah.
to say, because
Absolutely.
if we only look who is responsible through then we are on the wrong way, because I think also the people who developed the vaccines don't really understand what they are doing, but it's enough if they are inspired and guided by dark impulses, but they do not have to understand them.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. So there is like, especially, there's talk also about these elite people and these elite scientists sometimes being into Satanism, right? And opening themselves up to darker energies. And maybe that's also where they get, if they have that connection, where they get their inspiration from, because they're connected to that.
Yes. Yes. Okay, and so, but you had another question.
Yes,
Could you?
about the different effects of the vaccinations, because I found it really interesting that, like, with the Russian and Chinese vaccine, there seems to be like different effects, different spirits associated with it. And the mRNA, like the modern Western vaccinations, like, they really come out as the worst, in my opinion. So can you talk a little bit about these differences?
Yes. Yes, the difference. The difference is, in my view, the kind of spirits who are connected with the vaccinations, and the Western mRNA vaccinations are connected with, with quite very aggressive beings, and these beings were first new to us. We did not really know them before, and so we have to find a new term for them, and we call them transhumanistic soratic spirits. And soratic beings, that's a term from Rudolf Steiner's, are spirits that do not belong to our earthly development. They are coming from distant cosmic regions. And this soratic spirits are nearly always active when it comes to violence, rape, torture, or war. But these special spirits in these vaccinations we found, and we found them in the aura of these vaccinations, act especially on the bodies and have a transhumanistic impulse. And the bodies are supposed to become soulless machines. That's the impulse. And in the Chinese or Russian vaccination, we could not find the soratic beings. We find other beings, Ahrimanic beings. I don't want to go in details, but that was the main difference. And and so we also found that this Chinese Sinopharm and Russian Sputnik 5, there we could perceive something, had not such strong effects like the Western vaccinations.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think those Western vaccinations are really more geared toward transhumanism, more so than the Russian or Chinese vaccines? Why do you think that is?
Yes, they are different. I think, and the question is why. I think the Western vaccinations, I've had 2 points. The Western vaccinations are genetically engineered, and that means that they directly intervene in the workings of our genes. And Sinopharm and Sputnik do not do this. They are traditional vaccines. I think that makes a big difference, because the genes are the physical expression of our spiritual archetype of the human body. Mm-hmm. And then a second difference is that the Chinese and Russian vaccines are not being developed by pharmaceutical companies with financial interests. The money is not so important there. And with this money motivation, that opens the space for dark spirits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. So, going back to those transhumanist spirits, you said that they were from outside. So you have, like, if I understand correctly, you have like the Ahrimanic forces are more connected with the development of our solar system, which is like the shadow. But these transhumanist intentions and spirits, they're really coming, like, you could describe them really as alien because they're coming from outside our frame of reference, so to speak.
Yes, yes. With this thought, you can understand it better. Where are they coming from? But they are also coming not only outside as the space of our earthly development. They're only coming outside the time of our earthly development. So they are like it's the rest of older developments, fallen angels from long times ago. But it's a big question. I think we cannot bring. I think we have to lead it a little bit open here, because it's there for the understanding of this soratic beings. We need a lot of more understanding of the whole spiritual evolution of our Earth.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, is it the first time that they are coming here, or did they also come here, like you said, during Atlantis? Do they come back from time to time, or is this the first time that they really want to?
They are here since the Atlantic times. They are always connected with black magic actions. They are the forces who bring the people to black magic actions. But there are a lot. So it's a dark shadow we had in our karmic evolution of mankind. Is this black magic action connected with the soratic beings? But now with COVID vaccines, it's a new special kind of soratic beings, because it's a world of a lot of different beings, and we never experienced this kind before.
Yeah, it's very interesting, but for me it makes a lot of sense because there is obviously this push towards transhumanism we have in our society, and it gets pushed so much, and it makes sense that the vaccine operation is a transhumanist operation, and there is spirits associated with it, like it's a liquid, right? I mean, everything has consciousness, even water has consciousness.
Yeah.
And liquids has consciousness. And I remember like this picture from a book where people like visualize these elemental beings that were in that water. It's kind of scary a little bit, but it makes sense because everything has consciousness.
Yeah, of course, and we did the same with vaccinations, and we meditated the vaccinations, and then we found soratic spirits in overall, and then a lot of soratic elemental beings also. Water beings, earth beings, but soratic beings connected with the vaccination. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so is it. Every matter is a home of spirits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, I remember like there was I don't know, Michael Rhodes. He was a teacher. Like he recently passed away, and he described how all of nature is has these elemental being, these devic energies, these overarching devic energies, and when it turns for the dark, or when humans with dark intent use liquids with a dark intent, it will attract these spirits, of course. So it's actually. Could you say it's like an infiltration, actually? I mean, we got to look at this. We got to look this in the eye. We have to talk about this, although it's not a nice subject. Is this like the infiltration of humanity, and like they say, human 2.0, like infiltrating humanity, possessing it, but then also blocking off the higher consciousness to create this transhumanist version of man? Is that actually what the goal of this is?
What's the goal of this? Yes, that's a good big question. I think it's a training it's a spiritual training in the end effect. That means the spiritual, this somatic beings, and also the vaccinations and a lot of other things gives us some obstacles to develop our spiritual connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can perhaps take it in such a way. I think our humanity sunk down too deeply into materialism, and but the materialism is a dead end. And one of the dead end is when after death the bodies remained like solid lumps of cement, and the soul could not feel there is change in these blocks, and there is no spiritual surrounding no more, and there is no cosmic power. That's the dead end of materialism. And a lot of people wanted to experience this dead end because they choose it. They choose it. It's always a freedom. Everyone has a freedom to choose. And after this experience, and when the soul could digest it and overcome it, then they have really experienced what is the bad, they know the evil, and they also have experienced the divine grace. And this could be a fundamental turnaround in the theory of incarnations of one. So it's that's my main idea. It's really a spiritual training, and the karma is working. If we do not go into a spiritual connection by ourselves, then we will forced to do it. And I think the COVID vaccination is to force the people. They bring the people individually in the dead end of materialism, and then a turnaround is possible.
Mm-hmm. So it has to, So it has to like get a lot worse before it can better. Yes. Practically speaking.
Yes, it's not. It's not a good thing, but so is it. It's a truth.
Mm-hmm. It's like a wake-up call for humanity, which, like you say, has sunken so deeply into materialism and has forgot its true nature. That these evil or like somatic beings, as you call them, come in to give us like a wake-up call, also on the spiritual levels.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main idea. That's the best idea to handle the situation, and because also these possessions with these somatic beings, it's possible to heal it. It's always possible to heal it. So in the higher spiritual world, on the level of archangels, Michael, Raphael, or higher, or if you look to the masters, Master Jesus, Christian Rosenkreuz, Kutumi, they can all handle the somatic beings. We can get help enough. That's not the problem, but we have to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Before we go and talk about, the healing, I want to ask a few more questions about the vaccines and also about the masks, actually, because that I found really interesting. It was just like one sentence in your book, but you said some of those masks are also associated with that black magic. And, I found this really interesting because I had a little, we actually got free masks from the Belgian government. And, I was working at that time as a government worker, and I got them for free and I wore them, and it was so bad. Like much more bad than the other masks, and I took them off after 5 minutes. It was like so bad. And then you said some of these masks are associated with the black magic, and these masks we got for free were actually were poisoned with nanotechnology. Afterwards, they admitted that these masks were poisoned with nanotechnology. The mask that we got for free, every Belgian, and it was bought from some shady company in the Cayman Islands. I mean, it was really weird. So, and I found it really interesting that you said also some of these masks are associated with these black magic spirits. How does that work?
Yeah, we had the same experience, and I heard it from different sides. And also some COVID tests also has black magic possessions. Ovix's tests, also the tests, but it wasn't always like that. It was quite different how you mentioned it. Sometimes it was, sometimes not. And how does it come from? I think it comes from the company and the motivation, and you can. It was possible to get a lot of money with the mask, and a lot of dark people with big shadows started. Going into the mask business, and I think that and over this companies and people's black magic powers could come into the masks. I do not have more explanations, but it's the same. It's the same with other things too. You can meditate money. You can meditate your smartphone. You can meditate everything. Mobile cell towers are quite horrible. Black magic possession on a high level. So it's a normal thing. We have to learn to handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also said this has been like you say, the cell towers and stuff. It's really an attack on humanity, as most people who are a little bit spiritual aware know. And you also talk about different medicine like chemotherapy and stuff that also has kind of the same effect, maybe not as bad as the vaccines. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yes, because we found that chemotherapy has nearly the same effects like the COVID vaccinations, but not always. It's also quite different from individual to individual, and from the kind of chemotherapy medicine. So and it's so that it's not only the vaccination; it's a wide field of drugs who has quite destructive effects. So, the drugs to make suicide are also quite terrible. In Switzerland, we had in the last years we had a lot of dead souls who made suicide by such drugs. And they were in a terrible state. Yeah, that means the spiritual attacks is on a lot of different ways is coming to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to realize the scope, and I'm sure people who maybe watch this and see this for the first time, maybe a little bit, intimidated by this, because it comes at us from all ways. We've really grown up in, what they call like the Matrix, where they really want to dumb us down and limit our consciousness, and since the COVID injections, it has really gone in high gear. It has sped up a lot. What I want to ask you is, because you talk about the soul after death. But what does this mean for future incarnations? I know you said, and you posed in the book, an open question that was not answered at the time of writing, which is, what effect does it have for future incarnations on the soul? Do you have any more information on that?
And not really, because it was we could not directly make an observation because the time was too short. So most people who died after COVID vaccination have not been incarnated. But I think there must be a negative effect on future incarnations. The law of karma is working. If the COVID vaccination blocks in the afterlife and prevents the etheric body and the phantom body from expanding into the spiritual world, then these bodies cannot be renewed there. And normally the phantom body and the ether body goes to the star. And if you get to a next incarnation, these bodies are coming from the stars, digested, renewed with new powers. And if this could not be happen, then there must be a kind of damage or even disabilities of the bodies. And this also would affect the soul. So that's my idea about it.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard it say from another healer which I know and trust, is that he observed that this I'm not saying this as truth, as this is what he said, but I would like your comments on this, is that it has a tendency, not always of course, but if people don't do the healing work or just mindlessly go in with it, it has the tendency to pull the soul more into a timeline of transhumanism. Like maybe that future incarnations will move towards a timeline of transhumanism where they are karmically connected to these, darker elites,
Yeah, of course they are connected, and then you will follow the transhumanistic agenda easily. Yeah, of course, and then you come deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm. And but what I found interesting is that there was also like bridges. So in the end, maybe because this is of course a heavy subject and it's not easy to talk about, but even those people, I feel like they will follow that path, but then they will realize that path doesn't work, and they will, in the end, they will also grow out of it. Am I understanding this correctly?
No, so please once more. I didn't get it really.
Yeah, so these people so these souls who have chosen, on a subconscious level to follow this transhumanist timeline, maybe they will also be freed in future incarnations because they just had to follow that path to realize that it doesn't work.
Yes, and until they really come to the dead end, and then they manage to change it. Yes, to manage to turn around themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot, but it's for me not. It's not easy to. It's not easy to say how long it will last and what will really happen in the next incarnations. It's for me hard. For me, it's easier to speak about the directly effects in the life after that, because there I had a soul. I can observe what. The bodies and so on as a development in the life after the death, that I had the possibility of really observation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about people who have been able to turn this around, who have been, largely healed from this, because this is, of course, really important. We cannot talk about this and not talk about the healing. So you talked about there was one woman who actually consciously took the vaccine and, was really healing. And it seems to me a big part in overcoming this is having an awareness of it, of realizing what is being done and realizing there's a dark intent to it. And that really, that seems to really help by healing this. Can you expand a bit on that?
Yes, because if you have an understanding, then you can you get a viewpoint, understanding of this black forces, and you had a viewpoint to look at them, and that is the fundamental part of every healing. Because if you have a viewpoint and can look to the effort, to this being, that means you are connected with Christ, with the higher spiritual forces, because they give you the viewpoint. And but normally it's not enough. Then you have to work with it. But I can remember a dead man who was really well educated in anthroposophy and also in spiritual work, but he was urged by his family to be vaccinated. But then he fell from his bicycle immediately and was immediately dead. And after that, we found him completely confused and desperate. And he experienced experienced no spiritual light. It was dark around him, and he did not understand where he was. And he was totally cut off, locked up. And for him was the turning point that we could make him understand that he was experiencing the consequences of the COVID vaccination. And the interesting point is that he had read about these effects when he was alive, but after that, he could not bring it together. But I and a friend, we meditated him very long, and we could make him clear what it was, and that brought him his power back and his. I was then he could catch his eye again, and he only through the understanding, and then he could starting to work with his spirits. And I had then the feeling that it was enough, and I could leave him alone because he will manage it. So that is one concrete example. But normally it's not enough only to have an understanding. It's a starting point. And then you, if you are in your body, then you have to do spiritual work, healing work. And it could be a different work. I knew someone who only goes in a spiritual service every Sunday, and it's such a strong service. It was enough. But a friend who also is quite active in meditation, and he felt forced to take the vaccines through his job, and then he experienced that his angel connection in his chakra was cut off, and then he worked over 5 months every day. He goes in his chakra, and then he tried to open it to the angel, to the archangel, into higher angel hierarchies, but he worked over a month to overcome the effects.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. And you could do it in different ways, but the important thing is you have to do it and not think I have done one thing, now it's enough. Perhaps it's not enough. So it's important because it's quite complex, and often it's better to think of this you will need half a year for doing it to overcome the spiritual effects of the vaccinations. Mm-hmm. But it's always possible. And with dead souls, it goes often quite quickly. So normally, it's if I work with dead souls, it goes quicker, and if I work with incarnated people, it needs a long time.
Mm-hmm. Maybe because it's still in the body, the substance.
I cannot really explain it, but it's a experience I had.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really positive message to know. People can work on this if they feel it has some effects on this, because we wouldn't want to talk people things into their head. Of course, people need to feel for themselves what they feel and what they believe and act from that. But I think it's interesting that that people have to do a concerted effort if they feel like that this connection has been lost in a way or worsened or subdued. It's like what you were saying. You have to build it back up. You have to it forces you to work on your spiritual connection, to really work on it over a longer time if you want it to get it back. So it actually, like you say, it works as a kind of agent of transformation in a way. If you've gone down the path of taking the vaccine, you can then build it up to the point where you can build your spiritual connection back up again.
Yes, that is a good thing. But the problem is more the people who do not have the idea that they have to work on something.
Mm-hmm.
That is more the problem. But we are not responsible for the what's going on Earth. We only can take responsibility for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so in relation to that healing, are there any like higher powers people can call on to help them with their healing? Because there must be assistance for humanity, of course, from the spiritual realms. I heard you talking about, like Master Jesus Christ and, all these energies of like these higher energies.
Yes, I think all higher spiritual beings can help to redeem the effects. But it's more important where you really have a connection, because if you do not feel Buddha, and you do not have built up a connection, it does not help if you now ask Buddha to help, because he is not
Mm-hmm.
here. And it's the same if you are not used to go in contact with Christ or in contact with Michael and with the Archangel Michael. If you are not used to work with him, then it will not work. First, you have to build up a contact. And if you had a real contact to a higher spiritual being, then you can work with him. And I think every spiritual beings higher than the normal angels, our higher than our guardian angels, can deal with the soratic beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
wow.
we had the help is not the problem. There is a lot of help in this from spiritual world. The help is not the problem. The problem is to ask the help.
Yeah. That seems to be a problem for a large percentage of the population. If people don't believe in spirituality, then people will not ask for that help, of course. Yeah, that's and you said that there's a lot of souls earthbound. Like how does that, are these souls being helped in any way, or do these souls stay earthbound in the energetic sphere of the earth?
Yeah, they are. I estimate that the half of the souls are earthbound or stuck in the moon sphere, in the beginning of the moon sphere, and it's like a dark cloud around us, because the dead people are not aware. The dead people are our surroundings, our surrounding of our soul and of our thinking, and they are living in our will. So, and it's like we are always like in a dark cloud of earthbound souls. Yeah. So is it that's I was this year I was in Bali in Indonesia, and on vaccination, and one of the impressive experience I had was that there were no earthbound souls. It was a spiritual, a clear surrounding, because the people in Bali had a spiritual impulse. Every day they offer the gods something, and were praying, and they had. They are happy if someone is dead, because he is then now in the spiritual world, and also so it's a total other culture, and that's the one reason why the people in Bali um, had a better life after that. They really can go quickly in higher, lighter spheres. Yeah, but when we were flying back in the first. Was Singapore at the airport, the Earthbound dads were again around me.
Oh,
So
really?
that is our situation. It's that is for me the main problem we have, to help this earthbound dead people and because nothing, there's always a possibility to help and to do something. Always, everything can be changed.
Mm-hmm. So if people have like family members who passed away from the injections or shortly after the injections, is it up to people to like, what can people do if they want to like help them? Should they do something? Should they like pray for them?
Yeah.
Or do you say it's better if you have no experience not to do it? What do you suggest?
Yeah, the easier is what's always possible is to pray for them, and to pray, and that's always possible, and it makes an effect, and then you can go deeper and deeper into spiritual healing. That's clear, but you only can do what's possible for you to do. But that's and you also, and another thing is that do not think that if someone is dead, he's away. No, he's not away. He's around you. Stay in contact with him. That's another quite important step. Pray for him and stay in contact with him. And people who are sensitive normally had a feeling about a dead person and what's going on with a dead person, about his state, his problems. As if you feel your own feelings, you also can get something about. But you have to think that it's possible to perceive a dead person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's like with anything with extrasensory perception. Usually, we are in our own way because we don't believe we can do it, or we don't believe it's possible. We are blocking ourselves off in a way.
Yes. So that is a problem, and we do not have a real culture to train our super sensible perception skills. If there would be a culture that in school is a training to feel what you feel, to feel the atmosphere on different places, to feel what's around the plant, and the only you could train it, then we had a cultural foundation for super sensible experiences, but we do not have it because we live in a materialistic time. But so is it, and we only can look what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe for any closing, let me see here. I had another question. Do you have any new insights that you wanted to share since you written the book? Because I think the book is like written 2 years ago. You finished writing it 2 years ago. Is there any other new insights that have come up in the meantime?
Yeah, there were a lot of different points, but I want to take one important point, because we now really understand that there is a passive vaccination infection. That means that the spirits which are connected with the vaccination can also spread only over the aura. I will give you a concrete example. One friend was coming to me and said that he has been suffering depression over the last 6 months, and he didn't know why he was coming in such a depression. And always, if he wake up in the morning, he had to go through a black cloud or something. And in the session, we try to understand it. Then I found all spiritual effects of the COVID vaccination in his aura. All beings on every range. I said we had 25 different points, questions we asked, and he had nearly everything. And but he was not vaccinated. He only picked up this vaccination spirits through contact with other people. And we did a healing work over an hour through every levels, and he felt immediately relieved, and he was more relaxed. And since then, the depression was gone. And I asked him several times after that, in the following month, And he always said, yes, the depression is gone. It was really a turning point, this healing session. And I'm share this experience because it was a simple, clear thing. normally, normally it's more complicated, and there are a lot of different themes, and it does not help to make to work once a time. But here it was, because it was really only this. We call it passive vaccination infection. So it was only this one. So, and it's and that's also a point. It's also hard for me to speak about it, because I do not want to scare the people. But on the other side, if you do not know it, then you could perhaps you could not understand what's going on with you. I had a lot of other examples, and the people are another friend that they found in the last month. They only work like a robot, and they have loosened their self. But why? Why have they loosened the contact to their eye? And then we also found, passive passive vaccination, and we could then we could redeem the beings, but they were coming back. 2 months later, it was the same, because there was a biographic opening to always attract these beings. But so it's only, I think it's important to take it in mind. This could be, and I have to check it. Because if you don't know that it could be, then it's going on.
Absolutely. And, I agree with you that we shouldn't go, through life scared of, oh my God, because we have to go out, right? We can't become a hermit, right? We have to go out. We have to do our shopping. We have to go amongst people. We can't live as hermits, so we can't go through life scared. But I think we need to work on our own energy and our own connection. Do you have any recommendations of spiritual practices people do to be more robust in life, and to not, if this would happen, to not have this happen?
Yeah, so there are different possibilities. One is to be aware and to strengthen your aura with the light of Christ or the light of Buddha before you going somewhere. Or another a friend, they always took a spiritual water, a water who was in the middle of a meditation ceremony, and then they took it in a small bottle, and it was helpful for them. Another friend, he takes Kiefernadel tea. How is it in English?
Pine needle tea. Pine needle tea.
Yeah. Okay. So, and it helps her. So there could be different possibilities, but you have. I think the important thing is that you be aware and that you try something, and then look. Does it help or not? And after and another effect is, after you confront it, is then your system could be that your whole system has learned how to handle it without doing special things. But first, it's often necessary to strengthen your energy, and then after confronting this vaccination beings in the bus station, in where you are, and after if you have done it half a year or 1 year, then your system knows how to handle it without, and then perhaps it's not necessary to do special things anymore.
I get it. Yeah, it's like knowledge is power in a way too. We have to have the knowledge to know that it is possible. But then we also have to have the practice, act on the intention, and it's part of. I guess these days it's part of a balanced spiritual practice. To especially if it's a sensitive person, to protect your field, to be balanced, to work on your own healing, so you're more balanced, so you're more embodied. If you're to work on your own, doppelganger or shadow, because it also comes in through that, I guess. So is there anything you want to mention, Thomas, before we end this interview? Anything you want to say to the people?
So, and I, in the book, which is in English and Dutch available, there are a lot of meditations, how to overcome the effects. So we tried really to explain it practically what's possible to do.
That's really interesting, and I remember you also have a book about not only in the COVID book, but also another book with all kinds of meditations. Is that book out in English or is it only German?
It's also a book, Overcoming Fear. I wrote it. It's 28 meditations, but it's not specially for the vaccination. It's more about how to handle this crisis in the world and the effects of our soul. So it's Overcoming Fear. That's another book. So it's there's also a lot of good impulses, and it helped, especially in the time during the Corona. In the Corona time, it helped a lot of people to stay in their sovereignty.
Absolutely, that's also very important. It's also very important is going in a balanced way through these times and not succumbing to the fear they want to push on us. It's really appreciative that you write these books, because it can be a big help to people to bring those balance in their lives. So thank you, Thomas, very much. If people are interested in this kind of subjects, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Do you have a website or a YouTube channel where people can see you? Do you do writings, or do you have a presence on social media?
Yes. I have a website, anthroposophische-meditation.de.
Oh, it's in German.
Yeah, but it's also a little bit in English and.
Okay, so people can go to that too.
Yeah. But it's more for getting in contact.
All right. So thank you very much, Thomas, for your courageous interview and your courage to bring this out into the open, because it needs to be done. I think your book is really one of the only books that really brings this. There's a few others, but really that pushes it to the forefront so much. So thank you for that, and thank you for your work. And thank you
for inviting me.
No problem.
I hope and for your good questions. I think it was we went through a lot of deep things in the last hour.
Absolutely, and we need to talk about those deep things. That's how we grow, right? Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you, viewers, and don't forget to subscribe, and see you on another interview. Bye-bye.